What is going on, beautiful people? It's Jacob, and we're back with more Evolve, except this time it's not just a gameplay. We are running this guide, Hunter Guide. This is going to be the part one of two parts. The second part's going to be more monster focused. This one's going to be more hunter focused. And this is just going to be a basic entry guide for my newer players. And if you haven't played it in a while, maybe you can pick some stuff up from this as well. So if you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, comment. If you do comment, I'm 100% going to see it. I'm pretty small, and I'll most likely respond to every comment that you guys send me. And if you enjoyed this type of video, let me know, because I can make a more advanced guide. This one's going to be pretty basic, but the advanced guide would cover like perk synergies, class synergies, more like teamwork oriented, more advanced details. This is just going to be like the basic individual role. So let's get straight into it. Now, before we get off that ship, we should probably understand what each role does. The role of the assault is your damage. I'm going to say / tank class, because it's his kind of goal not only to deal DPS, but to alleviate some of the pressure on the rest of the team and soak up some of the abilities that the monster uses. Your class ability, all assaults are going to have, is their defense matrix. All assaults' main damage abilities are some sort of short range shotgun-esque ability. You got Lennox's plasma lances, you got Parnell's actual shotgun, but most of your main damage is coming or the flamethrower character's flamethrower, I forgot his name. But most of them require you to get up close and personal, so don't be afraid. Bait out the monster's abilities onto you, and then defense matrix a majority of his damage while you're pumping out your DPS. The biggest tip here I can give you guys is not to defense matrix nothing or have weak value out of defense matrix, because after that's going down, that is your primary way to stay alive, to delay damage while you get more healing. So once that's down, that makes you a prime target. Going on to the next class, we got the medic. The medic's ability is group heal. Other than Paladin, I'm pretty sure is the only outlier here. Paladin Parnell, it has rocket launchers and then a self heal, but I digress. I think the biggest concept to understand playing as the medic is, once you're dead, your team loses its primary source of survivability. So it's most important that you stay alive at all costs, and making sure that you're not doing the opposite of the assault and not up in close and personal, allowing the monster to get to you, because the monster knows that you're the main target as well. So let's not use 4 jetpack dashes straight into the monster's face just to get one-shotted immediately and watch your entire team die around you. Saving jetpack dashes is really important, and then making sure you're keeping your team topped off, because if your entire team's missing like an eighth of their health, it makes a difference coming into the fight. So there's a bunch of different things that can deal damage while you're chasing the monster from just the random mobs in the world. So just make sure you're topping off your team off. And then off to the support, your class ability here is the shield burst. Self-explanatory, gives your team an AoE shield. It's really important to use that when your medic or assault is starting to take some of the heft of the damage. Maybe you notice that your assault used defense matrix already kind of poorly. Monsters on him, shield burst to maybe give him some time for defense matrix to come back up. Outside of that, I feel like support has the biggest variety in role, because some of your classes, you got like Bucket, who plays the sentries, or like characters that use damage amps. So supports, I think, are the most flexible in terms of character selection, and they're kind of this like split between utility and damage. They don't do as much damage as your assaults, but they don't have as much utility as maybe a trapper, but they're kind of like that nice in between. So if you enjoy playing that, your goal here is just to play to your specific characters. If you're bucket, really focus on setting up turrets and then DPSing with your rockets, or making sure you're damage amping, making sure you're putting people invisible when you need to. Outside of that, that's just kind of how you support. Just don't forget that about your other half, which is like, you don't want to play bucket and just sit there spamming turrets the entire fight when you have a rocket launcher. I mean, help your boys out, put some heat on the monster. All right, and then finally we have the trapper. Your class ability here is the global scanner. Pretty easy. Global scan gives you small movement speed. Then you can chase down the monster. You're probably going to be the first one to see it because most trappers like to run the jetpack recharge perk, and then on top of that, the speed boost from the global scanner. So you're probably going to be the first one to interact with the monster. And Trapper's main goal is to just CC the monster with like Griffin's harpoons or Electro Griffin's harpoons and slows. But some trappers kind of sacrifice some utility so for more damage, and if you're playing at one of those characters, then make sure you're also allowing yourself to put in some damage. But usually if you're running those trappers, you got to understand too that some of your other teammates should be running some more crowd control-esque abilities, because if everybody's running like the DPS version of their class, or like the heavier DPS version, then you won't have enough utility and the monster's gonna just run through you freely. All right, now we know what each class does, kind of a general understanding of what our roles are, and we're coming out of the ship. How are we gonna track the monster? All right, as soon as you land, you're probably gonna see a ton of tracks. So you can global scanner right off spawn. I don't know what's actually better, but usually I global scan right off spawn just to get the movement speed and start trying to put pressure on the killer immediately. The downside of that is he can, after you use your global tracker, he gets the advantage of being able to stealth around again. So he can play some mind games on you, but usually that's not a big deal. Other ways other than the global scanner is the birds, or tracks more importantly, and then birds. And then once you gain line of sight of the monster, make sure you're spam pinging him so the rest of your team kind of sees where the monster is as well. And then just some understanding, like, well, you're tracking him. When he's crouching, he probably you won't see any of his footsteps or tracks. And then if he's running through water, that also hides tracks. So keep that in mind. If you're chasing him for a while and all the tracks disappear all of a sudden, he might still be around trying to sneak double back on you guys. And then on to if that's how you track him, how do you actually, now you know where he is, how do you make the chase faster? Because the longer you're chasing him for, the more food he's consuming, the faster he's getting to stage 2, stage 3. So you want to get him into like a good circle at stage 1 and just start pounding on him as soon as possible. And so I'm gonna show you one of the first concepts is kind of simplifying the map down a little bit, because most maps can relatively be looked at somewhat of a circle. Obviously they're not exact circles, but if you make the map circle, you can start kind of understanding these concepts of how to catch up to the monster sooner. So the monster's probably going to stay closer to the outside edge of the circle, and that's because there's usually more food out there, and the further he is out to the outside of the circle and the closer you guys are to the inside of the circle, the more things to break line of sight, making it more difficult for him to track. Since we know the monster's probably going to stay to the outer edge of the circle, our hunters are going to want to stay somewhat towards the inside of the circle, because the circumference of that circle is going to be a lot less, making it a little bit easier to catch up to the monster, because the monster has a little bit more mobility than the hunters do. Now we've tracked the monster, we've caught up to the monster, we see the monster. You see that big old F button on your screen, or whatever button you see, that is your dome, and you're getting excited because you're about to get your dome off. What kind of domes are you looking for? So I'm gonna show 2 pictures up on the screen here. Both of you have one god, like the god dome, and then one that's pretty monster favored. So the God Dome is, if you see this obstacle right in front of you, and it kind of cuts off splits the obstacle in a way where the monster can't wrap around it, creating these little pockets. Those are really bad for the monster to get stuck in, and the more open the arena is, the harder it is for that monster to mitigate damage as he's waiting for cooldowns, because his cooldowns are probably his most important way to deal damage. So the second one here, you can see he's able to loop around this obstacle. That means he's able to, for example, Meteor Goliath, his main damage ability is his Flame Breath. So if he's Flame Breath, throws a rock at you, hides, wait for his cooldowns come back, then can combo you again over and over again without taking that much damage, because he's looping around this little, a pillar perhaps. You can end up losing a lot of health really quickly. Another dome you can use is a half dome. I'm actually not sure if these are possible anymore, but you used to be able to throw like a half dome in a way which half of it was outside of the map, and so which is hunter favored for the most part. It can be, some monsters benefit, like if you make the fighting arena too small and you are forced to clump together, that's bad for the hunters, but for the most part some half domes are hunter favored, and so restricting that space and forcing the monster to fight face on is pretty bad for the monster. So now you've done it. You learned your God Dome, and now you got him. You chased him. You domed him. It's beautiful. Now what? So it's battle time, right? So first things first is patience. You got 5 full minutes to fight in the dome. Usually it's like 1, maybe 2 people that are off into the dome, and then the other 2 people are split from the team. Be patient. Don't just rush in there without the rest of your team. Wait for your team to come back, because the monster's not going to try to fight right away. He probably is going to assess the situation, so just be patient. And then let's talk about positioning, right? So your main damage dealer, Assault, is up in the fray, face first into the fray. And then right behind him will most likely be the support, just able to give buff and DPS as well, but slightly behind. And then behind that is probably your trapper, pulling on CC, pulling whatever else type of utility you have. And then even further back is the medic, making sure that they get an overview of everybody and keeping up the heals as he goes. And now you're fighting. And one of the things you have to be careful for is your survivability, right? Because if you go down, you lose permanent health. I think it's like 25% of your health, and you go down twice, you lose 50% of your next health. And so I call this like trading, because if you're trading some of the monster's permanent health for your own permanent health, and if you force the monster to lose a chunk of your permanent health, dying in the process isn't the end of the world. The problem is if you've broken his shield, but the monster's killed everybody at least once, and now the next time you guys fight, you're gonna lose because you're already squishier. And then the next time you fight after that, it's even more difficult because he'll just kill you as soon as he downs you. And for my final point, I want to talk about when he does get stage 3 and the generator's in play. Stand guard at the generator and be patient with your dome, because the monster's forced to come to the generator to fight you guys anyways. So it's a good idea to just stay patient and fight there, because when you do not use your dome as soon as you see him, use your dome for after you've chunked him a good amount and he's trying to run. Then you want to dome him, because then he's forced to fight you even longer. If you dome him at the beginning of the fight, he was gonna fight you regardless, and now you've just wasted your dome, and maybe you chunk most his shield and he's gotten like a down and you haven't taken any of his health, and now the dome is gone and he just runs away, regens his shield, and then comes back for another fight. And if now you actually don't have any dome, alternatively, the better way to do that is you're fighting and you wait for him to start running, you use your dome, and now he's forced to fight when he was trying to run to begin with. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's a little bit different. I'll try to make a monster guide relatively quickly, but I'll release this one today, and I'll see y'all next time. Hope you enjoyed. Bye-bye.